Hey, everybody, welcome. This is the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. And every week we bring you stories of people who are working to make a difference in the lives of others locally, globally, and digitally. The Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley is a part of Rotary International, 1.4 million Rotarians and Rotaractors around the world in 36,000 Rotary clubs and some thousand Rotaract clubs and just a bunch of good people doing good things. And we bring you stories of people who have stories to share. And those stories address the idea of building community and spreading peace and goodwill in all sorts of ways. And today we have with us Terrance Gelenter.
Gelenter.
Gelenter, all right, who is our American friend in Paris. He's going to explain what it means that he's our American friend in Paris. And he is a guy that I have known just long enough to know that I expect nothing but coolness. So Terrance, I'm very much in that camp that you are bringing loads of cool to the table, and we are excited for you to share your love of Paris with our club. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. What we're going to do to start with, the format today is going to be a little bit different, is we're going to call up some images, and I'm just going to have Terrance start talking to us about what he sees. And he's going to say, hey, switch that image, and we're going to then switch it and that kind of thing. But that's the basic idea. Terrance, talk to us. What are we looking at here?
Well, here you're looking at something I've created that is Café Terrance at La Coupole in Montparnasse. It's an informal gathering. It sometimes can be 2 or 3 people, or as you see today in this particular image, quite many more. I found myself many years ago when I would go to in those days the Café Flore on Sunday, and I realized that I was going there every Sunday, and in my newsletters at that time I was only writing 1 a week, but now I'm writing 6. I said, well, if you happen to be in Paris on Sunday, you can visit me at my office at La Coupole between 10:30 and 12 o'clock when the lunch crowd comes in and we need really to vacate. And one Sunday I didn't show up and I didn't tell anyone, and 2 women from San Francisco were furious with management. Where is he? So I realized that I had kind of painted myself into a corner and created a scenario that was kind of interesting. The lovely blonde with my arm around is a very dear friend who lives in Mill Valley. Actually, that's her daughter across from us. The gentleman without any hair, or I should say, he's got your hairline, same barber. Paul is from Corona del Mar and just recently bought an apartment here in Paris. Dennis off to the left is from Seattle, Washington, is very actively involved in, I can't think of the technical term for it, but he's highly involved in tech and lives here and in Arizona. The lovely blonde across from him is Deanna McMillan, who does fabulous private tours of both the Orsay and the Louvre. As I say, if you've not taken her tour, you haven't been to either one of those museums. And then in the far corner, we have Gloria and Jean-Luc, who live in Berkeley and have an apartment here in Paris. I mean, today I think you mentioned the word community was somewhat, I think, what this has become and what it's all about. It's not necessarily a place for me to sit there and mouth off so much as a place for people to come and meet other people and create friendships. So today, Deanna is the pillar of the organization. She's there every Sunday on her way to the gym and arrives and grabs a couple of spots for us. And then today, my friend Aaron from Los Angeles, who's in film production, originally from Elgin, Illinois, joined us. And then I had 2 surprises. We had Hannah from Hamburg, who is now living in Paris, who was here a couple of weeks ago for her first time through. And Anne from Los Altos Hills, a longtime reader who just popped into Paris for 2 days as well. And then Jane Callahan, who's from Maine, lived here for many years and has just come back. Was a professional dancer, modern dance. And she was sitting next to Jean-Michel, whom we'd never met, a Frenchie, and got into a conversation with him. And he's decided to hang out with us. And then another lady, Marie-Dominique, who has been on the periphery that we don't know, who comes there every Sunday has decided to become a part of the group as well. So there's very much an energy of a welcoming, of community, of people. In the case of Anne, who's just arrived here, getting getting pointers from other people about how to go about getting properly situated. So it just becomes a place where we can sit and chat, and it's every Sunday. If you're in Paris, and we're there. Here you're looking over to the left at, in my opinion, the most beautiful of the covered passages in Paris, which date to the middle of the 1830s, 1840s. Uh, these were effectively the first real department stores in Paris, because you could walk in, out of the foul weather and do some shopping. And Walter Benjamin, the great Jewish German philosopher, wrote a book called The Arcades Project. It's about 900 pages. He used contemporary newspapers and magazines like Le Petit Parisien to describe what quotidian life was like in Paris at that time. And the passages, there are 7 that remain, were a big part of it. But this one's been beautifully restored. Off to the right, you see 2 victims of my tour called Paris au Flaneur, where I take people around Paris. And I like to say that a lot of learning goes on, but there's so much fun you don't realize that you're being educated. And this was a couple from Chicago who are friends of another friend. So there's a lot of community, a lot of people that are interacting with each other. I like to think that I bring a certain amount of joy to my professorship. This is the interior of the Deux Magots, and these are the Deux Magots, not to be confused with 2 maggots. These are the Chinese merchants, as this particular cafe, which is one of the 2, the other being the Floor, which kind of anchor the history of cafes in Paris, was a small, not quite a department store, but a mercery shop where they sold buttons and bows and notions and all kinds of things like that. And these are representatives of the 2 Chinese merchants that the store at the time was named for. Off to the left on the bottom is a photograph, you may not be able to see it, of Janet Flanner, who lived next door with Ernest Hemingway. Yeah, right, thank you. In any event, that's where the name came from, and those 2 particular statues are landmarks, as is the terrazzo floor, which you cannot see, but they're untouchable. They have to remain like that. Quite beautiful. This is the exterior of Le Deux Magots, and as I say, this is my preferred cafe. At one time I was a floriste, but I have issues with management and I refuse to go back. And if I see you walking in, I will not allow you to go in. I will grab you by the arm and pull you over to Deux Magots, where we have a much more congenial management. This is off to the left. This is me singing at the Cafe Madison. We now call it the Club Madison, or as I call it, the Stork Club on the Seine. We took over the breakfast dining room in this really lovely hotel and turned it into a nightclub twice a month, where I basically do a lot of Tony Bennett. Many French songs have been translated into English. People like much of Michel Legrand and Charles Trenet and all of that. And again, it's very casual, very informal. We can do about 30 to 35 covers, take a break, and everyone schmoozes, and then stick around afterward, have more to drink and talk. This is me with I would describe as my classic ironic grin. It hasn't changed. This photograph is 1953, when I was 6 years old, and I'm still the same guy, a curious look at the world. I'm onto something, but we don't know exactly what. And these are the gardens of the Palais Royal, which was constructed under the auspices of Cardinal Richelieu, which was Louis XIII at that period. And the reason being that prior to Versailles, the seat of the government of the king was across the street at the Louvre, and so Richelieu wanted to be close to the other source of power. And I have a little membership club which I give away at least once or twice a week, 5 books to paid members of the organization. The newsletters are free. If you want to make a contribution, just as you might do to The Guardian in London, I accept it with a smile. And for $50 a year, you become a member and automatically are entered in all of the, this coming week, I'm giving away 2 books. The following week, another book. And if you're a reader, it certainly will amortize itself very quickly. And we're through with those. And we're back.
Excellent stuff. All right. Thank you for
the applause.
Well, of course.
In the corner.
Most of it's coming from Aggie.
About that before we continue?
So, yes. So what we'll do is let's get a quick intro of the folks that we've got on the recording. Wave when I call out your name. Joining us from the Bay Area is Shags in Walnut Creek, and Phil, also up in Livermore. Phil?
We don't see Phil. Okay.
Phil says that might be it.
Livermore.
Good man. Excellent. A little farther into the state, towards the rest of the country, we have Aggie in Merced, and we have our member and secretary Mike, who is in the greater Sacramento area. Farther afield yet would be Cecilia in Italy. Thank you for joining us this evening, as it is, and our speaker, of course, Terrance, who is in Paris. And what we're going to do is we're going to start opening up to folks who have questions. So just folks, when you are ready, just let me know in the chat that you are ready to do so. Terrance, start actually a little bit about your writing. So you've got these 6 newsletters that you put out, via email each week, but you've also written a memoir.
I wrote a memoir. I think I have one book in me. I think of myself seriously as much more as a journalist in the way my style of writing. If you read my book after you've listened to me a little bit, you'll hear my voice very clearly. But there are writers who sit down and turn out a new book every year, be it fiction or a lengthy amount of research into nonfiction. I started out. I was writing movie reviews in San Francisco for El Mensajero. I was at one point the most widely syndicated Latino film critic in America for 8 years in 6 newspapers. Jewish kid from Brooklyn, it's pretty logical that I would fill that particular role. But I had 600 words. And so I learned how to write tight, which is a different skill than, often when people are writing books that you can go on forever. You got to get in and out very quickly, get the audience. So that is pretty much, if people start to read me, you'll see that. But the memoir was a little complicated getting started. I came to Paris in 2009, and the economy was tanking, as we remember, after the election in 2008. And all of a sudden, I had one client. Best Buy out of Minneapolis was a living for me, and it went away after 8 years, which was no fault of mine. It was just something natural occurring in the market. So all of a sudden, here I am without any specific income outside of a little money I'd saved. And I had to start to figure out ways of doing things. I did something in New York called the Paris and New York Literary Festival. I brought in writers from New York, put eight of them into a hotel room, did a couple of shows there. And I said, well, let me write a book. Let me see if I can't use this. And it took me a while, because it's I think when you're, irrespective of how large your ego is, and I don't come with a compact ego, but who cares about Terrance Gelenter and his life, But what you realize when you get into it is that my story is very universal in so many levels, and people can begin to see their own life in there, and people are interested. I always have done events with writers, particularly in the Bay Area, where they would come in and they may be speaking for free at a local library, bookstore, but they would come in, somebody would pay 10 euros to get into one of my events. I would interview them, people would hang out and have drinks. And I would say, don't read from your book. Please don't read from your book. Talk about your book. Talk about yourself. And I'm sure you have this experience. When you connect with someone, then you're really interested in getting the book and learning about them, be it whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You make that connection with the audience. So as I started doing that, then the writing got very, very easy, because you're going back and you're mining memories, some of which have been dormant for a long period of time, and then anecdotes and people begin to come out of it. So it was very therapeutic in a lot of ways. I wound up connecting with family I hadn't spoken to in over 40 years, which which you can read about in the book, back in Pennsylvania. So that's a book I'm proud of. I look at it from time to time, even today, and I can see what I was writing and what thoughts were coming to mind, and it holds up.
Fantastic. I want to work my way toward the question that Aggie sent in the chat, but I want to build to it this way. When you think about the idea of travel, some people travel all the time. They travel here, they travel there, they compare their experiences, all that kind of thing. For other people, going to Paris might be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So do you see what you're doing as service, in a sense, that opportunity to make sure that someone who goes there has an exceptional set of experiences in that one time they're there? Or do you see this as service?
No,
Do you see this in some other fashion?
it's my responsibility. If I work with you, if you, for example, you take my tour or whatever it amounts to be, or whatever, I help you get an apartment, a hotel, or whatever. You're in my living room, even if we're walking down the Boulevard Saint-Germain. It's up to me to make sure that you maximize that experience, that it's as educational, as much fun as possible. And if I haven't done that, then I've failed in my job. I don't fail very often. And I don't mean that as an egotistical thing. There's a natural sense of passion about living here for me, and I want to share that. I want people to walk away, even if they never come back. I'd like them to come back and be so excited that they really grasp, Paris, and come back and enjoy it. And come and visit us on Sunday. Don't have to spend any money with me. That's not the issue, but to understand how important it is. And I'm sure Cecilia could talk at length about what she's found so exciting about Italy. They're not different experiences. They're just different locations. So yeah, absolutely. I have 5,000 subscribers. I'm never going to get 100,000, 50,000. Aren't enough people are going to, that would like me anyway. Half of them hate me. The rest of them love me. There's no in between. I'm a little bit of a lightning rod. But if you, at the end of the day, somebody will say to me, well, gee, Terrance, you're a tour with me with 4 people is €500 split. 2 people, 350. So we're not giving it away in cash, and you take me to lunch. But it's, I can take a tour for €40. I said, please do it. You'll never be happy with me. But at the end of the day, most people will say to me, gee, all of that for only €500? I like to think I'm not in the travel business. I'm in the memory business. And together, and it's like being in a restaurant, being a waiter. The experience that we create together. It's me reacting to you, sharing things that I know, getting a feel from our conversations prior or during about where your interests are, and moving that whole experience towards what's most passionate to you. At the end of the day, you're going to walk away with memories. And if you stick my book on the coffee table, you'll be yakking about our experience for a long period of time.
Very nice. So when you think about this idea of sharing stories, you've been to different settings.
I thought I was hearing somebody in the background. Okay.
Yeah, there is a background coming from somewhere. Whoever it is, mute, please.
Phil,
but
Phil, mute yourself, please.
You may have stepped away. I can help him out.
I like the way you said that, Cecilia.
So all good. So you've made presentation to Rotary clubs about this, other groups.
Yeah.
First,
I was on the Commonwealth Club. At least I've been on the Commonwealth Club more often than Henry Kissinger. I've been on 3 times, and my assumption is that history will be kinder to me than it will be to Henry.
Well, I'm sure
he was the same, but I think so.
All right. Well, but regardless,
and Michael Krasny, who I was on with Krasny 15 years ago.
Yeah.
On the old Forum show.
Michael Krasny, fantastic teacher, fantastic radio guy as well. So, are you a member of a service club? Do you belong to Rotary or any other organizations?
I'm not.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm kind of like Groucho Marx. I'm not a joiner. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I appreciate and I value what everyone's doing here in terms of their contributions. But it's never been. I'll stand by Groucho Marx. How could I join anyone who would tolerate the likes of me? I stand behind that comment.
Fantastic. Now, my guess is you've got somewhere between 100 and 10,000 stories about Paris. Mike asked, what's the number one must do when you're in Paris? What, like for you, what is kind of like right at the top of the list of, oh my God, if you don't do anything
there
else?
is no, the answer to that is there is no answer. Everyone has a different kind of experience. I would say that the majority of people the vast majority of people that I deal with, you come to Paris because it's not, it's not America, or it's not wherever you're living. That you not quite like Hemingway in the 20s was all sex and drugs and alcohol. It could be some of that too, but that's not the reason. The culture allows you. I mean, this morning's a perfect example. I wound up singing at the restaurant. I don't know how it got started. Whatever, it doesn't take much to get me to sing. And all of a sudden, the people all around us are hanging out. Behavior that I would be. Would be unacceptable in America. Who is that crazy guy? Guy speaks 4 languages. I made 10 times as much money as him last year. That vibe, and the vibe here is very open. People smile, not stupidly smiling, but they react to people. There's a human kind of interaction, and I think that I always tell people, for example, let's say you're sitting at Cafe X, at the Fleur de Magot, whatever, and you have a 2 o'clock rendezvous with Mona Lisa, but you're having this wonderful conversation with the couple next to you, and they invite you to have a glass of wine. Well, have the glass of wine, man, except for like 3 years in 1909 or 1911 when she was stolen and taken to Italy. She's been there for 500 years. She's not going anywhere. But you come here to have that experience. And maybe those people, maybe you see them again. Maybe you become, long-term friends, come back, or maybe you never ever see them again. But it's a moment, it's a vignette, and that's what you enjoy. I mean, as I say, Mona's sitting up there, and 90% of the people is surrounding the glass-enclosed painting. That's not Paris. What I just described as
she does have a certain consistency of place, without a doubt.
Does.
So the thing though of telling stories, right? Like if you were to pick one at random, that's a place perhaps that is a place that often visitors wouldn't know to go to, but there's an element of something related to film or anything else. I know that you speak on a lot of topics, that you can share with us.
Well, I mean, for example, the photograph I showed of the Palais Royal is quite interesting. Not many people don't know about it. It's right off the Rue de Rivoli. It's behind and adjacent to the great theater. All of a sudden, I can't speak English. The Comédie Française is right there, and then behind it, you have the gardens, and you start off with this concrete area that now has these striped tubes, columns, if you will, of different heights. That was installed by an architect, Daniel Burnham, and so to get from point A to point B, children are jumping up there, they're taking photographs. It's a way of just enjoying the space, rather than, as we in America tend to be so destination oriented, we're going to get from here to here in the shortest possible way. Well, here, just meandering, something stops. On either side of the pavilion, because it was also residence, Colette lived there. You beautiful, beautiful gardens. It was the garden that Louis XIV played in. He lived there with his mother Anne of Austria until he was 8 years old, when in 1643, when he became the King of France and reigned until 1715. So that's there. It's very quiet, unlike the Luxembourg Gardens, which is huge and quite beautiful. You can easily take a break, sit down. I've done this often, do a crossword puzzle, read. And then when you walk down the corridors, if you remember the movie Charade, does everyone remember the movie Charade? Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant? No one shaking their head?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, as you remember, as they're walking down and the Henry Mancini song is playing, when we played our charade. Anyway, that's there. The sequence where Audrey is in between Walter Matthau and Cary Grant, and they're shooting bullets at each other, and Audrey's in the center. And then right around the corner is the Théâtre du Palais Royal, where they pulled the floor out from under Walter Matthau, and he goes to his death. Well, that's all sitting there. So you're in Louis XIV. And then as you get towards the end of that, you come upon Le Grand Véfour, which is one of my favorite multiple-starred Paris restaurants. and this is where Colette would have lunch every day. And near the end of her life, she was somewhat poor, didn't have any real money to spend, and she sent her niece down to talk to the owners and said, "I'm sorry, Madame Colette needs to give up her place because she can't afford to have lunch here anymore." And the owners said, "Madame, as long as Madame Colette is alive, her table is there waiting for her," and she was fed free for the rest of her life. And that's kind of a story a lot of people don't hear about. It's just one that jumps out at me.
Well, and a good one it is as well. I don't want to get to the end of the recording without offering you the opportunity to share a little Tony Bennett if you want.
Yeah. Well, the one that I, that I like, I consider myself the viceroy of verse, not the viceroy of vice. There may be other candidates out there, but as many of you may or you may not be aware, most of these songs that come with the verse is what precedes the song, and they have virtually no relationship to the text of the song. So I often will sing and I'll say, well, if you know what this song is by the verse, please, raise your hand. Just say if anybody can get it here. So the verse, it goes, poets often use many words to say a simple thing. It takes thought and time and rhyme to make a poem sing. With music and words I am playing. For you I have written a song, to be sure that you know what I am saying. I'll translate as I go along. Anyone? Fly me to the moon. Did you know it? Did I interrupt you?
Aggie knew it.
Aggie knew it. Good for you, Aggie. Okay. You get a glass of wine when you come to see me in Paris.
School. Excellent.
But anyway, that's so typical because and again, Tony is my guy. So
Shags notes that he gets paid to stop singing. All right, well,
he has stopped singing.
Yeah, as long as we move him over to cooking the paella, we're fine. He is the club paella master, by the way.
Who is this?
That's Shags.
Well, I didn't. Now, Shags, you got to give me some background on the name. It has certain meaning in England, which I hopefully is not why you have the name, or maybe hopefully it is.
Look at my name, Stephen Shagrin. You can figure out the name.
Oh, okay. Now I didn't see Stephen Shagrin. Okay, yeah. I was thinking of the British activity that we're not going to talk about.
Yeah, well, I'd have a smile on my face you couldn't knock off with a shovel.
There you go.
Which brings us to the next question.
Is this your paella? Are you the paella master?
And that's one of them that we made for a party. About 40 pounds of food.
So, Terrance,
yes.
But before we finish the recording itself, and of course, a message to all, as we finish a recording, it doesn't mean we stop talking to the cool people that we connect with. So, is there anything about Paris of the last few years that stands out as something exceptionally interesting, cool, wonderful, surprising for you?
Well, interesting. We had the Gilets jaunes, breaking windows on the Champs-Élysées. We had a transit strike locally. I don't know if, interesting is an odd word. You could say, well, this is an interesting face. One is Quasimodo and the other is Catherine Deneuve. They're both interesting, but I'm looking for some clarity between the two. Not really. I would think that when I was describing the experience today at La Coupole, some things don't change, and I think people, particularly Americans who have decided to live here or who come regularly, form a large part of my community. I think it's why we're here and why we decide to come here. It's something still very attractive and appealing about being in a culture that allows you to be you, whoever you are. As I said to people, maybe your Paris is Toledo, Ohio, not Spain. Whatever. Everyone. But I think it's very important, and I look at these faces. We're all pretty much in the same general secondary part of midlife. It's very important to find a place that works for you, to be in a place where you're comfortable in your skin, and wherever that happens to be. And I think a lot of people go through life trying to be something they're not, trying to please someone else. And here, you're not just tolerated. At some level, you're celebrated by being somewhat eccentric and living, the life that you were meant to lead. In my case, I was meant to be here. My fiancée, not my future wife, but just the way we describe. At my age, you don't have a girlfriend; you have a fiancée. And but she's always described me as being not really American. I'm a European who was accidentally born in America. I think there's some truth in that.
Fair enough. We typically ask our speakers to give a final word, although I think you just did a beautiful job of doing exactly that. So just to close with some logistics, thank you everyone for joining us for this recording. If you are joining us on our Rotary page, then scrolling down just a little farther will mean that you can let us know you were here. And a little farther than that, you can share in the thoughts that people have about both this program and all of the remaining content that we have in each week's meeting. If you are checking this out on the YouTube page, scroll down to the description. You'll see more info about Terrance and about our club, and you are very welcome to follow the links you'll find in either setting to learn more about Terrance's work. We are excited to share stories of people who bring joy to the world and find ways to improve it in all sorts of areas, and we hope we will see you next week.
And is this the point where in radio you give my web address as a publicity?
Please do.
Yeah. In radio, you're supposed to mention it at least 3 times when you're on, but only do it once. The website is paris-expat.com. And when you get there, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see the 6 individual newsletters. You can click on one or all, whichever appeal to you. And you can opt out if at some point one of those things or all of those things no longer appeal to you. But I look forward to hearing from you.
Excellent, Terrance. And for those watching this, scrolling down a little bit in either setting, you'll find those links. We will see you next week.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.